What's going on, guys? My name is Kenta Gauba. Welcome to the podcast. Today I'm joined with Katharine Lucas. She's a friend of mine. She's a practitioner of Yin Yoga, sound healing, and Reiki. Katharine, welcome to the podcast. How
Thank
you doing
you so
today?
much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, we know each other through, you work at Riffs here in La Jolla, right? Practicing or teaching people or
Both.
Yin Yoga, right? Yeah,
practicing and teaching,
right?
for sure.
Tell us a little bit how you got into yoga, Yin Yoga specifically, like your journey so far. Like, how did you.
I think it was my mother actually who took me to my very first yoga class when I must have been in middle school, I would say.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was with older women or middle-aged women.
Okay.
And that was my first exposure to yoga, and I was kind of like, what in the world is this? This is another one of those weird and wacky experiences that my mother is taking me on, and I just kind of awkwardly got through it and went about with the rest of my life, and not coming back to yoga for many, many years. And then when I was in college or university, as we call it in Australia, a friend of mine had a regular practice and invited me to her studio where we did, it was hot yoga. Not exclusively, but that's what we ended up doing, or I did for a while with her then, and then kind of left the practice again for another extended period of time. But when I moved to America, I had some free time on my hands, and I decided to return to a practice and seek out a yoga studio. And I did when I was living in Reno, which is where my husband was doing his residency training at the time.
Oh, cool.
And then we moved to San Diego a few years later, and I was hunting for a studio here.
Okay.
I tried a number of local studios until I came across Riffs Yoga Studios in La Jolla, which had the special something, the magic sauce, whatever it was that I was looking for in a space, something more than just fitness. And so I started to practice there. I ended up doing my yoga teacher training there, and then started to teach there as well.
Okay. And like, what initially drew you to Yin Yoga specifically? What was about that practice?
I think I took the Yin Yoga class, my first Yin Yoga class, kind of by accident. It was a popular teacher that I knew had popular classes at the studio, and it was a style I'd never taken before, and so took it and was very surprised. It was radically different from any kind of yoga I'd done before, what I was expecting, and kind of after I got over my initial surprise, fell in love with its slow pace and its meditative style that really resonated with me. My kind of natural energy, nature, or state, if you will, is kind of that sloth-like nature. That I'm a very inactive person, and I actually need to do more yang type practices to bring balance into my life. But the teaching of that slow meditative style, I find, comes quite naturally to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I would have thought maybe it would be the opposite. Like, you're more of yang. Because I feel more like I'm a yang energy, like high, like kind of just go, active, sports, all that stuff. So I feel like I need like a Yin Yoga practice in my life to sort of balance myself out. As far as like with Yin Yoga, like, is there like, how does it contribute to like mental clarity or like mental health in that way? Like, instead of just like it's just physical, like how does it translate to, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that given that you're spending several minutes in a shape, it affords us the opportunity to bring balance not only into the body but into the mind as well by practicing conscious awareness. And it can actually be incredibly challenging for many people to sit in stillness in a shape with sensation for several minutes. So it's by no means an easy practice, even though it might look like it is physically.
Right.
And even physically it can be challenging too to sit in stillness for many people on a physical level and on a mental level. And so it can take time and repeated practice to get more comfortable and find a greater ease in those moments. And also too, it's a practice to direct the mind to remain connected to the present moment. Its kind of natural state or nature is to wander to the past, replaying events that have happened, analyzing them, or anticipating the future and things that have yet to happen.
Right. And I think when I think about the classes I've taken, I think about like, okay, we're there for maybe an hour and a half, but we only did like maybe 6 different poses, maybe
at the most.
At the most, right? So, we're probably holding those poses for what, 3 to 6 minutes? Does that sound about? Now, is there like a minimum effective duration to getting into the fascia? Because I know you've talked about that, like you're getting into the fascia and you're stretching like a deeper part of you, right? Like you're opening up a deeper part of you. Is there like a minimum duration that you would shoot for, like scientifically? I don't know, like I'm curious.
Absolutely. Yeah, okay. That is such a great question. So this the fascia, that's the target of this practice.
Yeah.
It's actually this really complex and often misunderstood medium or fabric. It's this it's the organ of structure. It gives form to our body.
Yeah.
It separates organs, it wraps the body like a body stocking, it separates muscles, it separates muscle fibers. So it can be as thin as a membrane that wraps around a muscle fiber, or as dense and thick and stiff as a ligament that connects bones to bones. And so it kind of depends what fascia we're targeting, how deep it is, what its nature is. Is it more superficial or is it deeper, as I mentioned?
Right.
And so when we're dealing with more superficial fascia or areas such as the fingers, the toes, and the neck, we might spend a little bit less time because less time is needed in that shape, and I'll explain why in a moment.
Yeah.
But if we're working with deeper, denser connective tissues, then more time is needed in that shape. So you might spend, anywhere upwards of 3 to maybe 10, or even in my home practice, I could spend 20 minutes in a shape.
That's awesome.
So that's a long time. But getting back to your question about why spend that length of time in the shape. And that's because what we're doing is, so the body contains 70% water.
Yeah.
It's not like tap water, it's structured water. And it's structured with peptides like hyaluronic acid.
Okay.
And hyaluronic acid goes through what's called a phase change, where it shifts from a more gel-like substance to a more solution-like substance under applied mechanical stress.
Okay.
And so the longer we spend in a shape, we might notice that we're able to sink deeper, soften further, find more profound structural effects.
Yeah.
And also then over time, the more we can potentially improve our mobility,
right.
Or just maintain our mobility, depending on what our intention might be.
That's so interesting. I'm like, yeah, because I think about, for instance, like someone trying to, let's say, learn to do the splits, right? And I don't know if that's, specifically like a Yin Yoga pose or something, right? But like let's just say, just from the muscle and fascia aspect, they're doing this pose that's like effectively kind of hurts, like it's like, okay, how am I going to get to doing a full split? There's obviously some sort of something holding back in the fascia or whatever, and it's like painful and you feel sore, like, and usually when you think about yoga, like in general, you're like, you want to do it to feel better. So there's this like, it's like almost like, why am I doing this if I just feel pain afterward? Mm-hmm. So is there like I don't know, like a curve to there, like where eventually like it starts to like not be so painful, like sore all the time, like, and maybe in your practice, how long did it take to kind of get through that?
Totally. So when it comes to this practice, I mean, pain is actually something we are looking to avoid.
Avoid. Okay, good. Okay, cool. Okay.
We're not looking to experience pain in our shapes, and we're also not looking to like force our body into any position. The reason being is that can lead to injury.
Yeah.
And if we become injured, then we're out of commission, we have to rest. This is all counterproductive to the goal, which might be to improve our flexibility or mobility.
Right.
So we work with a mild to moderate application of stress in this practice.
Okay.
So we look for something called our edge, or I refer to it as our sweet spot.
Okay.
Kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. We want the porridge that's just right. Not too hot and not too cold. So as we enter the shape, which in Yin Yoga traditionally seated or reclined positions, rather than standing balancing poses, which are called more yang. Balancing poses use the muscles, so they're more yang type. We relax the muscles in Yin so that the connective tissues absorb the therapeutic stress being applied on them.
Okay. I was just curious as well, like, as far as like the different poses that there are in Yin Yoga, right? Are there ones specifically that you can use to target like stress and anxiety? Because I know a lot of people are dealing with, that kind of thing, like throughout the day. They might be working all day, then they're going to go do the gym and this and that, and then maybe they have 15-20 minutes and they're like, okay, well, I want to make sure I'm doing a pose that will target this for me, help me out here.
Sure.
Are there some?
Yeah, energetically speaking, there are definitely shapes that we consider, more calming and grounding. For example, like prone shapes where you're face down rather than exposed and face up.
Yeah.
Also shapes where the body is in flexion rather than extension. So flexion, like when we're, folded forwards or the knees are drawn into the chest. Shapes like child's pose, for example, gets both of these. The body's in flexion, the hips are flexed, the spine is flexed, and we're also prone and face down. So a shape like child's pose could be very calming for the nervous system and also for the mind. And breath is something that we work with in yoga and is so important and relevant to in our Yin practice. So we talk about, traditionally with breath in yoga, it's breath to movement, right? But if we were doing breath to movement in Yin, we'd be dead because we'd be holding our breath for, several minutes because we're not moving.
Right.
So breathing, we can work with, deep diaphragmatic belly breaths that calm the nervous system by stimulating the diaphragm and activating the parasympathetic nervous system, actually through the stimulation of the vagus nerve, which is one of the most important nerves of the parasympathetic nervous system. It's called the wandering nerve because it is the longest nerve, I think, in the entire body. It starts at cranial nerve 10. It connects to the ear, the jaw, runs down into the thoracic and abdominal cavity, connecting to every internal organ except the urinary bladder. And I don't think anybody's figured out why that one's left out. So this is all part of the practice. So there's many layers and levels to it. It's not only, working with the physical body in this way to increase and maintain flexibility and mobility. We're not only using it as an opportunity to practice a meditation, a conscious awareness practice where we're observing the sensation in our body and what we're feeling in the shape, how the sensation changes over time, what else is happening, what sounds can we hear, what's the experience like of observing the breath flow in and out and the heartbeat, feeling the blood surge through the body. And just, being in the moment. But we're also working with subtle energy. This practice, Yin Yoga, is based on traditional Chinese medicine and meridian theory, which states that we have these meridian channels, which are energy channels. They're called or referred to as nadis in the Indian wisdom tradition. And so subtle life force energy, this nutritive energy that gives vitality to all the cells and the atoms in our body. This all flows through these fluid energy channels that reside in the fascia, actually. And our entire peripheral nervous system as well is embedded in the fascia too. So we're working with our nervous system, our brain, our energy, our breath, our body. It's a complete practice.
It goes deep. It seems
it's multifaceted, many layers to it.
Are there like a set amount of foundational poses in Yin Yoga specifically? Like, could you is it 30? Like, is it what I mean? Like,
so my training was with Joe Barnett at the Soul of Yoga. And Joe Barnett is the senior assistant of Paul Grilly, who is kind of credited as the guy, along with Sarah Powers, who kind of put this Yin Yoga practice together. But Paul Grilly wasn't the first guy, actually. He was inspired by a martial artist called Paulie Zink. So anyway, coming back to your question, in working with Joe, Paul created this system where they've kind of created categories of shapes. And so we have these 7 different archetypes, if you will. Shapes that either stimulate certain areas of the body or move the body in certain ways. And so sometimes a shape can even fit into more than one category if it is targeting, say, the spine as well as the hips.
Cool. So there's 7
different archetypes. But then you can modify any shape, and it's hard to put like a hard and final number on how many shapes there might be out there, because there's so many different ways that you can change them by shifting your limbs
Okay.
to create a different sensation, make it look different, make it feel different. And it is actually referred to as a functional practice that is focused more on what you're feeling in your body in the shape. We have target areas or kinds of movements. So there's no one right way that the body is supposed to look.
Yeah.
It's all about the feeling and how you need to move your body in order to achieve the intention of the shape. And that's going to differ for everybody because everybody is different.
Yeah.
And even when it comes back to your question about the splits, that's interesting because, you know, somebody might never be able to do that shape. And it's not got nothing to do with their fascia. They might move their fascia in, you know, to the maximum. And in fact, our fascia contains elastin, which can expand 230 times its original shape and then return back to its original shape afterwards. And so this fascia and connective tissue, it can be very elastic, but if your bones and the orientation and the shape of your bones, you know, you can't change your bones.
Right.
After you're fully grown, you know, there's nothing more to be done.
That's just something I was thinking about. I was like, what if I want to learn to do the splits, but my bone, like, it hits the hip and it doesn't want to, you know?
Bone on bone compression is the ultimate limit to anyone's range of motion. And so if you think about, you know, the orientation of your hips, and actually Paul Grilly's website has some fascinating slides of bones, and he compares bones you know, from one extreme to the other. And so you can see how varied bones are between individuals, and even we're asymmetrical between our sides. And so if your bones are in such a way that, you know, it might be impossible to ever do the splits, no matter how much time you spent relaxing into that shape. It could be impossible.
Right. So another thing I was thinking about was the general populace is probably struggling with just sitting down on their computer, you know, in that shape. Like they're just, you know, so they're in this shape that is negatively affecting them. I deal with it myself because I have a sit-stand desk, but I still find myself sitting down a lot. And I have, you know, even when we're kids, like in school, like we're just sitting in chairs, you know, so our whole lives we just sitting, right? And it's like the opposite of like stretching in a way, right? So I wonder, like, what shapes are beneficial to sort of start reversing the negative effects of that type of thing, because I know that would probably help a lot of people. So I'm just curious, like, you know, simply.
I love this question. And I teach a lot of those shapes in my classes specifically for that reason, because I know that so many of us are spending a lot of time in the car, at our desks, on the couch, and even the head too. You think about the orientation of the head being downward at our tablets, at our books, and how much strain that puts on the back of our neck. And we're all dealing with tension headaches and migraines because all of these muscles are continuously engaged to support the weight of the head, which actually, you know, you think the weight of the head is like, I'm going to make it up. You know, I don't know. I knew once upon a time like 10 kilos, something like that. Okay, I'm talking kilos because, you know, that's, you know, I'm still in the metric system and I'm very resistant to anything otherwise. So, you know, the head, okay, so it's 8 kilos, say. But what, you know, the more it tilts, it's no longer 8 kilos here. It's like now becoming like closer to, and then you see those, you know, elderly people, I'm sure we've all seen, shuffling so curled and round, and they're stuck in that shape because the fascia has become dried out, knitted and contracted so much that they're now literally unable to even stand upright.
So it calcifies in a way.
It does.
Okay.
It hardens because it's not being liquefied, and these tissues aren't being nourished by the nutrients that would be delivered through this through the water that's contained in the body.
So it's like the hydroclonic?
Hyaluronic.
Hyaluronic acid. So it's like and then there's like a gel-like substance you were saying, and that becomes more of a
becomes liquefied essentially under this applied stress.
So that's what we're doing when we're doing these deep stretching, and so
we're melting the fascia. It's becoming more liquid, and then the nutrients are able to be delivered to all the cells.
So that's really what the flexibility is really like. Your fascia is a little bit more liquefied in a way, and in that state more often.
Exactly. It's being regularly asked to move, and so it's remaining flexible, and it's remaining hydrated.
So that's probably like super important to make sure you stay hydrated, you know? And
absolutely. And we naturally dehydrate as we get older as well, so it's super, super important.
What are some tips about like for hydration for like do you have like practice with electrolytes or something specific? I don't know, like, you know what I mean?
That's a great question. Yeah, and there are people who I know. Maybe one day I'll have one of those amazing Kangen water filters, and I'm sure that there's a lot of benefit to that hydrogenated water and all of that. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole we won't get down. But to be honest, I just I have this container. I know how big it is, how many I have to drink, and I have a soda stream at home, and I really love like carbonated water, so it makes it easier to drink for me. That's just personal. And then I add like a little lemon juice, or get a little tart cherry concentrate from the store. It has like lots of antioxidant benefits as well, and just adding like a little bit of flavor to it. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta drink my 2 containers a day, and I'm good. And I love tea and stuff like that too, so that helps as well. I have a few cups of tea as well in there.
So going back, because I don't quite remember, but what specifically, like, if you could name a few poses, I guess, like for the
for the benefit of opening and expanding,
like the hip area, like
across the chest, So like the go-to, my all-time favorite is kind of, I guess, would be a blend of 2 shapes. A supported fish with butterfly in the legs. So that would be taking, and you don't need yoga props to do these. You can do it at home with maybe a few pillows or cushions, depending on, how thick they are or dense, and you just pop that on the floor behind you, and then you recline back onto it, so you feel it more kind of behind the heart space, behind the thoracic spine area. That one's a great then that allows you to, when you kind of cactus the arms or open up, you get that nice stretch across the chest, because the back bends behind the heart. And then you can also, if it doesn't cause any pain in the back of the neck, kind of allow the head to tilt back, or work the crown of the head to get that nice opening and stretch in the throat, and also get the head to spend a little bit of time perhaps behind the shoulders rather than forwards, to bring in balance, to get it to hopefully align more in between the shoulders than forwards.
I mean, it seems like, we're kind of in that generation where, next 10, 20 years, maybe 30 years, we'll really see like the negative effects of everyone, like, because it's more than ever, people are staring at their phones all day, they're down here, like, that didn't really become a thing since like the last 20 years, basically. So
I know, it's wild to think back to like where I was, where the iPod came out.
Like, I was like in middle school when the first phone came out, and then it's like the iPod. So I'm just I feel like it's important for us to discuss this, and people kind of they don't really talk about this stuff, and they don't practice this stuff until it becomes very difficult to deal with. And it's like, you know, even when I was a kid, like I played soccer and it was like, I don't want to stretch. Like stretching is lame. Like I could just play, you know, I feel fine. But it's like, now I look back, I'm like, I probably should have stretched, you know, like, you know, now I'm stretching, kind of trying to, you know, match where I was before.
Totally.
So yeah, and I like I said, going back to the yin yoga specifically, I think for me it resonates because, you know, I've done different yoga practices, and being able to just hold a pose for, you know, minutes, you know, instead of like, you know, seconds, it's like, it's different, and it feels like I'm actually doing something. You know, it feels like, you know, with yoga, other yoga practices definitely like have helped me, but for me specifically, like I'm just at like such a high level of activity that I'm like, I need to like just sit in this for a while, right? For people that are maybe like new to it, never heard of yin yoga, is there something that like, how would you recommend them get into it, like as a beginner?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's a lot of great YouTube channels, you know, where you can take classes in the comfort of your own home.
Easy.
Super easy. One of my friends, actually, Jenny, who's a mentor of mine, she's taught me a lot, and I work with her as well. Her company is Zen Soul Balance, and she has a YouTube channel, and she's studied with Paul Grilly, actually, one of the OGs. And it's interesting because Jenny, she's much more kind of like yang type in nature, like you were sort of describing yourself, perhaps. And she teaches yin. She's a yin teacher, and she's a type A, very unlike me. We actually complement each other very well. But so she I think resonates with the more active student, that person who's the surfer, the bodybuilder, the physical, the person who's actually a lot like her.
Got it. Okay.
And so she can do the yin for the athlete, if you will.
Cool.
And I'm the yin for the old lady. But not only, right? I'm yin for anybody. Sure. Anybody who wants to show up and relax and melt and breathe and just spend some time in the moment. With sensation in their bodies. Cool. So you certainly don't have to be, as a self-described sloth. You don't have to be that kind of person to gravitate to yin as a student or a teacher. Okay,
cool. And I wanted to start to shift a little bit into the sound healing, because I know that's something that you also incorporate in your yoga practice, and I'm curious, maybe outside of that, yoga practice, and how you got introduced to it, and how that was drawn to you, I guess. Yeah.
So I came across sound healing at riffs as well. Actually, cool. A lot of things come back to riffs. Cool. Riffs started out as a music studio. They were selling guitars and ukuleles and offering music lessons, and started to incorporate yoga, and then became more of a yoga studio, and phased out the selling of instruments and instrument lessons, but still offered live music yoga classes, or classes that incorporated sound healing. Cool. The owner of the studio is also a sound healing practitioner. And so that was kind of my first exposure, was at the studio, and really loved it. I come from a musical family. My grandmother was a pianist and piano teacher. Her father was a organist and a conductor, and so I had actually grown up and learned the violin for a number of years, but didn't spend a lot of time practicing, and so was average, and discontinued it kind of the first chance I got. and didn't think that was for me, that I was a musician, although I continued to enjoy music, going to music festivals and things. And so so when I started teaching yoga, I actually had someone accompanying me with sound healing. I started teaching restorative, actually. And this was right before COVID happened. And then obviously the shutdown, and when we came back, class sizes are limited, and I'm not allowed to have anybody extra, and so can't have a sound healing accompanying me. But I still wanted to have this be part of my classes because I loved it so much and saw how it was resonating with people, and everybody else was enjoying it being part of the experience as well. And so I decided I was going to teach myself, and just got practicing and went on to do some small trainings, such as a gong training, and but really spent a lot of time just watching YouTube videos and asking mentors for help, people I knew who played. And now, fast forward only, 4 years, I am teaching people how to become sound healers. I lead a 3-month sound healing apprenticeship program, training people on how to play the instruments, but also the science behind it, because people want to know, like, what it's doing.
I'm curious. So that kind of leads me to the next question, because I'm curious, when because I've done sounding. I think my first sound bath, I guess, would be, or like a healing bath would be at one of the first lightning in a bottles at Bradley. And I just remember okay, let's try this thing out. You go with your friends, you lay down and you just close your eyes, and it's just like the sounds are washing over you, and somehow you come out of that just feeling so peaceful, energized at the same time. You just feel different, And I'm wondering, from a scientific perspective, what are the frequencies or of sound that are healing us? What is it exactly doing?
It's doing a lot of different things. That is a big question.
A big one,
and I talk about it for 3 months, in my apprenticeship program.
But specific frequencies maybe that are specific to certain healing, I don't know.
It depends person to person as well. There's no, one frequency that does kind of X, Y, Z.
Sure.
Certainly there are frequencies that are have assigned particular energies and properties. But this is a kind of a general reference. So an example of this that highlights what I'm talking about is the chakra system.
Yes.
So we have the 7 main chakras that run up the length of the spine. They're associated with a color, a sound, an energy, so on and so forth, and a frequency as well. A frequency refers to the number of oscillations per second. That transfers to the frequency in hertz, the number of oscillations. So, for example, the middle C on a piano is, I think, 262. That's going to be wrong, actually. It's not. But that just means that there are 262 oscillations per second when that note is struck. So, we might say, okay, well, I want to stimulate or work with the heart chakra. And so I'm going to play the frequency of the heart chakra, or a crystal bowl, perhaps, that's tuned to that frequency of the heart chakra. But that doesn't mean that that frequency is going to resonate with the heart chakra in every single person.
Okay.
That frequency could potentially resonate, more with the throat chakra. So it's not a hard and fast rule. We're all different. We're all unique. We have our own kind of natural prime resonance, if you will, which is a composite of all the cells resonating, hopefully in harmony. When every cell is resonating in its natural prime frequency, then we're considered to be living in balance and living in harmony. And if there's if a cell or an organ becomes out of harmony, it's no longer resonating in its natural prime frequency, then we find that a disease and pathological pathways develop.
Interesting. So there's a doctor, I want to say Dr. Hashimoto, I could be wrong. It's like he studied water and the effects. I think
it's a doctor. It might be Emoto.
Yeah, Emoto. Yes, I know who I was trying to get it, but I'm probably totally wrong. But there's a doctor that you know who I'm talking about, that studied the water.
His book was something like Messages in the Water.
Yeah, and so he was speaking positive affirmations to water, and then negative ones to another cup of water, and then they freeze it, and the different shapes and the geometry of the positive, and then the total chaos of the. So it's interesting to think about when you think of sound healing and these tools, these instruments that you're using, that they could be creating that harmony within your body, and that's where my mind goes. And so kind of tying it all to the Yin Yoga, it's we're just talking about the water in our body and how important it is to be more water, basically be more fluid, and then how the sound healing jumps into that. So are there specific instruments that you sort of draw to, or try to, I don't know, I'm sure there's tons, but are there ones that you draw to that you're these ones I feel definitely are more healing or something in that
I think
nature?
There's definitely ones that are I don't want to say more powerful is the right word. I definitely find that the gong, its resonant potential is just so, it gives off so much energy.
So it's more potent, more concentrated maybe, throughout the body or something. I don't know.
Depends how hard you hit it as well.
Right.
But then, there are some instruments such as the wave drum that people often come up to me afterwards asking about, what was that instrument that transported me to the bottom of the ocean? Or, really it took me to a place. And so you have instruments that are kind of more maybe grounding as well, and then instruments that are more light and ethereal and might produce kind of tingling sensations in your body even.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because if you have it's this 3-month apprenticeship, and I'm sure you go through a ton of different instruments, and then, but I think about what are the main, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 that you're so you're talking about the gong, the wave drum, is there
crystal bowls, good go-to. I'm pretty sure I sold you a crystal
I
ball.
got a crystal ball. Yeah, it was a crown
from Riffs.
Yeah. And I really like the rain. What is the rain
stick?
Or the drum, the one that has the
Oh, there's a thunder drum too. Gosh, there's so many different instruments out there. It's once you start, it's hard to stop.
And you teach that these different instruments and how they're tuned are sort of somewhat aligned to the chakras in a way,
So some of the instruments are tuned, and some of them are not. Things like rattles or shakers. Totally. So what a sound bath is doing is essentially creating a coherent sonic environment. And this coherent sonic environment, because our physical body, well, not just our physical body, our entire being actually is so exquisitely sensitive to sound and vibration, is that this coherent sonic environment is resonating with the cells in our body to hopefully retune them if they're out of tune, to restore them back to their natural vibratory prime frequency. And so sound baths are not the only way we can do this. Also going to nature, going out in nature, right? Where we get out of the chaos of the horns and even the hum and the whir of our fridge, or whatever the neighbors shouting next door.
Like, I gotta wear earplugs. It's like, you know what I mean?
So it's crazy. You go out to a place maybe like Joshua Tree or out to Julian, and it's so peaceful and quiet, and then you come home and you're like, oh my gosh, you notice all the things that maybe you didn't notice before, but these things are still all impacting us on some level, right? All of these sounds, all of this stuff in our environment is being registered, whether we're conscious of it or not.
Totally.
And so these can have negative impacts over time. Anxiety, stress, depression, insomnia, just a general feeling of dis-ease.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's kind of where I've been feeling like, I'm like, okay, there's so many people out here stressed, have anxiety. It's like, that's why I want to talk about, these different modalities that, could potentially help these people and, help me really too. It's like,
help everyone. We're all in the same boat, right? Exactly. We're all going through this human experience together, figuring it out, learning and growing.
Yeah.
And hopefully talking about it so that we can all support one another in this journey.
Totally. So, was Reiki also from riffs? I wanted to jump into the Reiki.
Okay, there we go. The one thing that didn't come from riffs.
So where did that start?
That's a great question. I'm not sure how Reiki really called my attention. My first memory of Reiki is on a beach in Melbourne in what I think was the winter time, hanging out with some guy who was much too old for me, who was practicing Reiki, wanted to practice Reiki. And again, I'm finding myself in one of these situations that's like, what in the world is going on? I don't know what this guy is talking about. And he's having me practice, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Yeah. And so never thought of it really again until I started going down this road, right? Was new to me as of 5 or 6 years ago when I started when I said, hey, I'm going to do my 200-hour yoga teacher training, and everything is kind of with the Reiki and the sound healing and the Yin has all evolved and come from that. And so I did my Reiki training at the Soul of Yoga Institute. Up in Encinitas.
Okay.
It's been there for a while. It's kind of it's an institute, I guess. And so my trainer was Erica Lee. So I did the traditional Reiki practice, but then never actually went on to practice it as a service, I guess. A service where someone would go and have a Reiki session like they might have a massage, for example. I don't do it in that way, but in the sense that Reiki literally translates to universal energy when I am teaching Yin Yoga, or when I am performing a sound healing service. I'm definitely moving and using energy through my body to cultivate a healing environment and experience.
Yeah. Interesting. So I was thinking about when you were young. How old were you when that happened?
When I was on the when I was on the beach with the older man. Oh gosh, I want to say probably around 60. Maybe.
Okay, so this was quite a while ago. But what I got from it was like sort of like the general public would have this kind of idea. It's like this esoteric thing, you know, because it's like, oh, like Reiki, like someone puts your hands over someone's body and it just like they're healed or something. It's like seems so like, you know what I mean?
It
like
couldn't be
witchcraft
more
or something. Yeah, like it's like what is this, you know? But you know, how do you like there are obviously these common misconceptions, and like how do you address them when you come across people that are a little bit confused or, you know, have those kind of questions?
Yeah, I mean, I get those kinds of attitudes and questions and responses when I tell somebody I do sound healing, you know. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, right. You know, whatever. So I'm, you know, I'm well versed in having conversations with people that probably know very little about what we're actually talking about and what it is that I'm actually doing.
Sure.
And so, you know, there's that to deal with and to come across, and how you're going to change somebody's mind in the moment, and do you want to spend your energy doing that as well? But, you know, which is unfortunate because they're certainly not going to get to derive the benefit from it unless they change their perspective. And here in the States, I think, you know, it's a very young type culture. Totally. It's a very material kind of oriented culture, which doesn't or perhaps hasn't historically put or deemed a lot of value in the unseen and the energetic.
Okay, but from like a, I don't know, like a scientific perspective, I'm sure there's, you know, you've done studied certain, you know, times when people, you know, this works, right? I've watched YouTube videos and I've experienced it myself. When I was a kid, I got really sick. I forgot exactly what it was, like a really bad stomach thing I had, and my dad, I was in Colorado, and he was doing Reiki. He was like, I don't know, he was warming up his hands, he was doing something here, and he was just holding his hands over my stuff, and it was working. I was like, I don't know how it's feeling better, you know, but there's this aspect of me that's also maybe like I want to feel better. This is my dad, I want, you know, it's like, so that in combination. But like from like what's happening on like a scientific level, like, you know, like I'm just curious because I know it has something to do with energy, but from your perspective, what does that look like?
Well, touch first and foremost is healing. You know, we derive a lot of benefit from physical contact.
Yeah.
We love is communicated that way. Affection, all things which, you know, calm and soothe us when we feel love, when we feel affection. We're probably going to be in a pleasant state. Yeah, it feels good. It activates our parasympathetic nervous system as well. So we're especially if we're dealing with, you know, pain where something might be contracted, if we're able to soften that, then the pain can subside. So there's that element to it as well. Perhaps the heat from the hands is soothing, but then also hands of healers have been studied, and what's been observed is that there's a change in the magnetic field around healers' hands when they go into that state of meditation and practice. And so plants, interestingly, have been studied with different magnetic fields being applied to them to see how the magnetic fields altered growth.
Yeah.
And so studies have shown that when certain magnetic fields applied to growing plants, it actually encourages metabolic processes and growth.
Okay. So how does, like, you studied, how do they teach, how to cultivate that sort of magnetism, I guess? Is it through a breathwork practice? Like, what's the...
It can be breath work. Often it's kind of a meditation. You might do sort of a grounding meditation.
Okay.
So you're balancing your own energy, and you're also shifting your brain waves as well. When we go into a meditation, our brain waves are changing from more active states like beta and alpha down to theta and delta.
Okay.
And so all these changes are taking place, in the healer, that is, facilitating this process.
Right. Interesting. So are you currently practicing Reiki? Do you have clients that you see like?
I'm not doing the traditional hands-on practice at all at the moment. More just kind of my own healing practice, which you're encouraged to maintain after going through the training.
I was gonna say so that's a thing, like you can practice Reiki on yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, actually.
So what does that look like? I don't know. Just if someone at home wanted to begin to start to do this for themselves.
Sure.
What does that process look like?
It could be seated or reclined. You might close your eyes, do a few rounds of a slow, deep breath, where you start to calm your nervous system, and then you might start just kind of by creating some sensation in the palms, rubbing them together, noticing that warmth, that friction, just starting to attune to the sensation that you're experiencing. And then once you've done that, it could be, placing on the head or on the eyes, and just sending love to yourself. Actually, our arms, our hands grow out of the heart center. They're an extension of our heart. So we're sending the energy from here through the arms and through the hands, and then back into our body or into the person that we're treating.
I noticed that. So that's interesting. Now I think about it, like you incorporate all of that in your Yin practice, or when you're teaching people or guiding them. I've experienced this. I just didn't think about it. I'm like, oh yeah, we're doing Reiki while we're in here.
Exactly. And that is really, I think, such an important thing that you touch on. And really, any healer isn't really healing another person, but they are reminding that person that they have the capacity to heal themselves. There's nothing that I'm doing that's magic. It's nothing special. I can create this environment for you, but you can create this environment for yourself as well.
Yeah, that's important for people to know, to empower them. Even if it's something simple as, like you said, I'm just gonna keep it easy. It's nothing crazy. Just warming up my hands and just thinking about it, giving myself love. And I guess you have to sort of adopt this sort of open mindset in a way to be able to do that. Because if you're closed off to it, then it's like how
right. You have to believe that your intention has some power to it.
Totally.
That your thoughts have power in creating your reality to some extent.
Yep. So what do you have going on right now with the Yin Yoga, the sound healing, the Reiki. What's going on in your life right now?
All the things.
All the things.
Got my regular classes at Riffs Yoga Studios. I teach there.
Yeah.
Monday and Wednesdays, I've got 2 classes.
Monday and Wednesdays, cool.
I do a class once a month at the Catamaran.
Cool.
I do a sound bath twice a month up at the Del Mar Beach Hotel.
Oh, wow.
I do a sound bath every other month at Riffs.
Nice.
So I've got a variety of regular offerings on the schedule around Yin Yoga and sound healing.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you may want to share about any of the modalities that we maybe didn't cover for the people that are watching?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's some great books out there on Yin Yoga and sound healing and energy medicine. I could drop a few. Vibrational Medicine, the #1 handbook by Richard Gauba, talks about a lot of different energy modalities, about energy medicine. And what I love in the beginning of his book is he really talks about what's going on now, which is this shift from Western medicine being foundationally based on, Newtonian science and this Newtonian view of the world where the human body is viewed as a machine. And we're now shifting to this more Einsteinian view and model of the human being as well as the universe, which incorporates energy as well. And so that's a great book. Also on sound healing, there's a number of books by doctors. There's one by a neurologist, Kulreet Chaudhry. Sound Medicine is her book. And then sound healing, let's see here. What's the guy's name? Boop, we'll cut that out because I can't remember.
We'll put that in the description. You can give me that later. That's awesome. And then, what about Reiki? Were there any like books or any like?
Oh yeah, there's handbooks on Reiki as well. You can find recommended ones on Amazon.
Cool.
I don't have a particular name to drop in that regard, but
maybe you can look like later on. You can send me if you find something.
I could totally. For sure.
So we'll throw that one in the description.
I've got my resources.
That's awesome. Well, where can the people that are watching find you if they want to connect and ask you questions or just
they can find me at Riffs Yoga Studios. And then also feel free to follow me on Instagram. We can pop that
we'll throw that in there as well. Sure. What is it?
Breathe Yin Peace.
Breathe Yin Peace. Okay, cool, easy. Is that mainly where you're at? Are you also on YouTube or any other social media?
I've been asked forever to start a YouTube channel. I've got to be the worst person in the world for self-promotion, really. And getting in front of the camera is like, it's a real challenge for me, actually. Here we are. It actually takes somebody out to get me in front of the camera. I can't get myself there, so maybe one of these days, but I'm really enjoying the in-person aspect and element and connecting with students and getting to talk to them and know them.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate you hopping on to the podcast and blessing me with your time and energy. It's been awesome. And we also have this little guy, or is
Pierre.
it a girl?
Pierre, he's a guy.
Little guy.
He was mostly good.
Well, thanks guys for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and until next time, man, we'll see you then. Thank you so much.